So what if the blueprint for our future cities wasn't sitting on some architect's drafting table, but was actually being built inside a video game? That's what we're going to dig into today. How this super popular game, Cities Skylines, is actually becoming a serious tool for real-world urban planning.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. It's just a game, right? But for a growing number of urban planners, this is way, way more than that. It's become this professional digital sandbox, a place where they can experiment with some pretty bold ideas for designing entire neighborhoods without laying a single brick in the real world.
And that's really the core idea here, using this incredibly detailed simulation as a totally risk-free environment. Planners can test out complex urban design theories, see how they actually play out, and learn from all the virtual mistakes before they become really expensive, real-world problems.
Think of the game as a proof-of-concept tool. It takes all these abstract ideas, things like zoning laws and transit policies that usually live in these super dense documents, and it transforms them into living, breathing virtual neighborhoods that you can actually see and explore. So, one of the biggest ways this is being used is to visualize new housing concepts. Planners are using the game to give a real, tangible form to this idea called gentle density, which is basically a way to build more homes inside the neighborhoods we already have. And at the heart of that idea is something called missing middle housing. Okay, so this isn't about giant skyscrapers or endless suburbs. It's all about filling the gap in between with things like duplexes, townhouses, and courtyard apartments. They're house-sized buildings, but with multiple homes inside, all designed to fit right into a neighborhood of single-family houses. And this diagram here, it lays it all out perfectly. This missing middle housing sampler shows you all the different options, from these cool little cottage courts, which are small homes built around a shared green space, to classic townhouses. The whole point is to give people more housing choices. Now this is where it gets really cool. This slide connects the dots perfectly. On the left, you've got the architectural diagram of these housing types. And on the right, you see those exact concepts built out in a fully simulated neighborhood in Cities Skylines. Planners can literally build these things to see how they look and feel right at street level. And the big idea driving all of this? Proximity. The goal is to design these complete neighborhoods where you can walk to a cafe, drop your kids off at school, or grab some groceries without ever having to get in a car. It's about designing for people, not just for traffic. But look, it's not enough to just visualize buildings. A neighborhood is a living system, right? So the next step for planners is to use the simulation to model all the dynamic systems that make it all work.
Inside the game, they can actually test the city's pulse. They can design and stress test things like integrated bus lanes and protected cycleways. They can create these walkable street grids that encourage people to get out of their cars and interact. And they can model how everything connects to major transit hubs like train stations.
And this thinking extends to the environment too. Planners are modeling what they call green utility, which is this idea where nature itself becomes a piece of the infrastructure. As you can see here, they're simulating everything from green roofs that help manage rainwater to shared courtyards that reduce that urban heat island effect. When you pull back and see it from a top-down view like this, you really get the big picture. You can see that cohesive urban form, the connected, walkable blocks, the integrated green spaces, and that central transit line. Every single piece is designed to work together to create a neighborhood that's way less dependent on cars and much more focused on community. Okay, but this next part, this is where things get really fascinating. Because beyond the infrastructure and the buildings, the most advanced use of these simulations is modeling the unpredictable human element. I mean, you can design the most perfect neighborhood on paper, but what happens when real people actually move in? With their own jobs, their own incomes, their own preferences? Well, according to one planner, reflecting on their simulation, the city just took on a life of its own. They said it evolved beyond a simple simulation and became a dynamic, living metropolis, revealing these complex social patterns that even the creator didn't see coming. So what did they actually see? Two really powerful, real-world phenomena just emerged organically. First, they saw a version of white flight where more affluent residents started moving out to the simulated suburbs. And at the exact same time, the inner-city neighborhoods they left behind started to gentrify, with rising costs pushing out the longtime residents. And that is the superpower of this simulation. It lets planners react and test out policy interventions in real time.
To try and combat these trends, the planner could, for example, strategically place new low-rent housing near transit hubs, all in an effort to keep the neighborhood accessible and equitable for everyone.
And look, this is not just some academic exercise. The insights that are being gained from these virtual sandboxes are directly influencing real-world urban planning reforms.
For instance, this kind of modeling is helping to inform major policy shifts, like the planning reforms happening right now in New Zealand. They're actually moving away from rigid, outdated zoning codes and shifting toward more flexible, human-centric models, the very kind that are being tested in these simulations.
And there is hard, real-world data to back all of this up. Studies show that the kinds of mixed-use, walkable neighborhoods they design in these games have incredible benefits. We're talking about generating 33% less car travel, which leads to drastically lower greenhouse gas emissions. The data is basically confirming what the simulations predict. Good design can actually change our behavior.
So when you boil it all down, it comes back to a pretty simple, integrated philosophy. The most successful, sustainable, and livable neighborhoods balance three key things: mixed use, so you can live, work, and play locally; connectivity, through walking, biking, and transit; and convenience, so all your daily needs are always close by.
Which leaves us with a final, kind of provocative thought. We now have the tools to visualize, to test, and to even live in virtual versions of healthier, more equitable, and more sustainable cities. So, if we can prove these ideas work in a simulation, what's really stopping us from building them in the real world?